Hey, what's up guys? Today we're gonna cover the famous kaijus of Ultraman Tiga and talk about some historical events that might have been related to them. I referenced the 2022 Ultra Kaiju popularity poll, which listed the kaijus from the Ultra series ranked in the top 198th place. But before I go on, remember that I am the biased pixel, so take everything that I say with a grain of salt. Well then, let's get started. The first kaiju we're covering is Gulza. I'm gonna keep it brief for this guy because there's not much for me to say. Gulza appeared in episodes 1 and 18 and ranked 54th in the popularity poll. One of the reasons why it's famous is because Gulza is the first kaiju to appear in the show, and has appeared in other Ultraman series as well. I'm pretty sure the other reason for its popularity is its design. I think Gulza looks awesome, and it was a great kaiju to start off Ultraman Tiga. Next up is Kyrieleid. This is where this video gets a bit weird and dark, as I explain a few things about Japan in the 1990s. Kyrieleid is a recurring kaiju in Ultraman Tiga and has appeared in episodes 3, 20, 25, and 52. Its original form ranked in at 49th place, and its upgraded form, Kyrieleid 2, ranked in at 36th place. Kyrieleid, or the people of Kyriel, hate Ultraman Tiga because they want humanity to praise them as their lord and savior and take over the earth. You can say that they're basically demons that want to open the gates of hell by deceiving humans to worship them. So far, the Kyriels sound like typical villains related to cults, right? But the whole thing about cults and religion got me interested, especially because in July of this year, the former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was assassinated due to his involvement with a religious organization known as the Unification Church. I knew that Japan always had fear and distrust towards religious groups, but I felt that I didn't know exactly why. So I looked into it. And from the looks of it, most likely it had to do with the organization called Omu Shindikyo. I had a hunch that they were to blame because, as a Japanese person, I've heard about them many times. I don't want to go too much into detail, but just know that this cult believed that they have to kill as many non-believers as they can and were planning on overthrowing the Japanese government. From 1988 to 1995, they have committed at least 40 different crimes ranging from abduction, lynching, murder, and illicit manufacturing of guns and drugs. The most infamous case that they have committed was the Tokyo subway Sarin attack in March 1995, in which 14 people were killed and 6,300 people were injured. Just so you know, Sarin is a toxic compound that is often used as a chemical weapon that causes permanent neurological damage to the victims. After the subway incident, the leader of Omu Shindikyo was arrested 2 months later in May 1995, and then, in 2018, the leader and 12 other members were executed. On top of violent cases, some religious groups were antagonized by the general public for their fraudulent business tactics. One common tactic is called Reikan Shouho, in which Rei means spirit, Kan means sensation, Shou means business, and Ho means standard or method. Put it together and the word means spiritual business method or spiritual sales. This method of business consisted of urging the customers to purchase a product to ward off something supernatural like evil spirits, a curse, or a tragic fate. It's not a problem if the product is something like a cheap lucky charm. However, at least from what I've read, many of the victims lost over $100,000 due to this business practice. Even though this business method has been around since the 1970s in Japan, it was only in 1993 that the Japanese court deemed a religious organization that was practicing Reikan Shouho to be fully liable for financially screwing the customer. And coincidentally, the religious organization in this 1993 court case was actually the Unification Church, the same as the one that the former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was associated with. Recently, Japanese news often covers stories regarding politicians tied with such organizations, which explains why the Japanese people distrust politicians and religious groups. Anyways, hopefully now you understand that Kyrieleid is not just a typical cult-like villain, but is possibly a byproduct of religious groups and cults making headlines in the early to mid-1990s. The next kaiju is Gazort, which appeared in episodes 6, 15, and 28, and ranked at 111th place on the popularity poll. This guy is a bit tricky to talk about as to why it's popular because there are several elements that contributed to its fame. One reason can be explained by its iconic scene in episode 6 when Hori used a device that could communicate with Gazort. Gazort was attacking the city and Hori wanted to stop by explaining that humans are friends. Then Gazort replied, "Friend is Gazort's food." And prior to the scene, there were several implications that some people were eaten by Gazort, making it the Heisei era's first human-eating kaiju. Now, if you're wondering why it wanted to eat its friends, it is simply because Gazort is a mutated form of a species of a small creature known as clitters that had cannibalistic tendencies, which is why it equated the word friend with food. On top of this horrific nature, Gazort also became known for the themes in the episodes it appeared in, which tend to revolve around the limitation of communication and understanding between individuals. I think the best episode that really dove into it was episode 28, which technically Gazort didn't appear, but its original creature, Clitter, did. This story focused on the arguments between the Guts members regarding the thoughts and opinions as to why people fight. I looked up some Japanese forums and many people seem to mention episode 28 to be their favorite or the most memorable out of the series. For me though, I was okay with it because I just couldn't understand the logic of what Rena and Shinjo's sister were saying regarding how if humanity stopped fighting, then the kaijus will stop appearing. But whatever, I still understood and liked what the story was going for. So yeah, Gazort most likely became popular because of it being one of the most horrifying kaijus from the show, while also appearing in episodes with an important theme. Now before I move on, I want to share some things that I learned while I researched about Gazort. I thought it was odd that electromagnetic waves and radio waves were blamed for clitters to mutate into Gazort, because such technologies have been around for decades prior to Ultraman Tiga. After some reading, I think it has to do with Japan's first commercial communication satellites being launched in 1989, and the official commercial satellite broadcasting, or CS broadcasting, starting in Japan in 1992. This is just my speculation, but I wouldn't be surprised if Japanese news stations covered this back in the day, which led to the script writers being concerned about the increased usage of electromagnetic waves and radio waves and their effects on living organisms. Now, for those of you who are concerned about the potential health issues, at least from what I've read, these waves apparently have no effect on the human body and are known to cause discomfort only if you have electromagnetic hypersensitivity. For the next one, I decided to only talk about one out of the 3 kaijus because I didn't have much to talk about them. The ones I was looking at were Obiko from episode 27, ranked at 115th place, Deban from episode 21, ranked at 126th place, and Silvergon from episode 26, ranked at 129th place. And I chose Silvergon simply because I love the design. Like, this guy just looks so freaking awesome. And to top it off, it's adorable. Even though Silvergon is a very strong kaiju, the way it behaves is like a little kid. I think Silvergun's most iconic scene is when it imitates Tiga's Zeparion beam pose. It then throws a tantrum because nothing happens. Combined with his brute strength and childlike tendencies, there's a good reason why Silvergun was described as the Heisei era's Red King. Now, before we go on to more popular kaijus, I want to talk about episode 16. What made it interesting is that the kaiju for this episode, Tsukunaoni, is the last kaiju in the franchise to die from decapitation. The reason apparently is because of the Kobe child murders incident in 1997. In Japan, this incident is known as the Seito Sakakibara incident, and it's super infamous for being one of the reasons why Japanese media, like anime, manga, and games, became sensitive about violence. I'm not gonna go into detail, but the suspect of Kobe child murders was a 14-year-old boy, and he murdered 2 children and injured 3. Due to the gruesome nature of the crime, how young the murderer was, and how police found multiple horror movie videos in the murderer's room, this incident sparked debates regarding censorship of violence in the media. This led to Japan's Liberal Democratic Party proposing bills that pushed for media censorship in 2004 and 2014, which thankfully never passed. Now, I couldn't find any interviews that clearly stated the influence the Kobe child murders had on the Ultra series, so definitely take this with a grain of salt. But considering how infamous this case is even to this day, I wouldn't be surprised if it was. The next famous kaiju is Evil Tiga from episode 44, which ranked in at 17th place on the popularity poll. The name is very misleading because this guy's not Tiga. He is another Titan of Light that happened to look like Tiga and went berserk because an arrogant genius transformed into it. This episode is thematically very important because the story explores who is able to carry the hope of humanity. The evil physicist that transformed into evil Tiga is an extreme elitist who believes that a super genius like him should be the one who leads humanity to prosperity. If you think about it, this is quite similar to the Tyreoloids who believed that they were the saviors. However, the episode with Evil Tiga also delves into the question of whether only a special person can become a hero or not, and this question is answered during the finale of the show. So why is this guy so popular? Compared to Tyreoloid and Gazord, who also have thematically important episodes, Evil Tiga's ranking in the popularity poll is significantly higher. I don't have any hard proof, but I speculate that it might have to do with two things: live stage shows and a meme. For the live stage shows, I think the biggest contributor to Evil Tiga's popularity was a project known as The Darkness Heals that started in 2018, in which villains from multiple Ultraman series were formed a team. There were two successful live theaters in 2019 that focused on the team and even had a manga series called Darkness Heals Lily, which started in 2021. Ever since the project began, Evil Tiga has appeared in other Ultraman related stage shows as a dark hero and apparently is well received by the fans. The second thing that I believe that led to Evil Tiga's popularity is the meme, "Motto ko aru daro." This phrase is a bit tricky to translate, but if I were to try, then it means somewhere along the lines of, maybe you could have done something different? Or was that really the only option? As you might guess, this meme is often used as a reply whenever a person or corporation has done something stupid. It's hard to tell you guys how popular this image is, but just so you know, if you search the Japanese phrase on Google, I will guarantee you that Evil Tiga is the first to appear in the results. This meme apparently was first made in July 2014, and I don't know how many times I have seen it since its creation. So yeah, hopefully you guys understood that Evil Tiga might have become popular because of its thematic story, the recent rendition in the live shows, and a famous meme. By the way, there was also another kaiju that appeared in this episode called Guardy, which I ranked at 97th place. It's pretty popular, but I decided against talking about it because I've already spent a good amount of time on Evil Tiga for this one single episode. Maybe in the future I might do another video like this that covers Guardy and other popular kaijus that I missed. The final kaiju we're going to talk about is Gathanathor from episode 51 and 52, which ranked 9th place, which is the highest ranking among all kaijus from Ultraman Tiga. Gathanathor is the final boss of the show and it has a fantastic design. I wondered why its eyes were placed below the mouth, and apparently it's because the monster designer of the show, Hiroshi Maruyama, wanted to imply that Gathanathor is always looking down on humanity. So what even is this guy? Gathanathor is apparently a god of darkness that has many settings similar to Cthulhu. Even though I've seen Cthulhu being referenced in games and shows, I honestly didn't know much about it. So I looked into it. Based on what I've read, Cthulhu is a fictional character that first appeared in a short story from H.P. Lovecraft, The Call of Cthulhu in 1928. Cthulhu was a gigantic entity that was worshipped by cultists and was the source of mankind's anxiety. It was hibernating in an ancient ruin, Ruruye, which is the same name as the super ancient ruin in Ultraman Tiga. So yeah, Gathanathor was made to resemble Cthulhu as a powerful godlike creature that represented despair. Also, I looked into why Cthulhu was chosen as the basis for the final boss of this show. And I learned that one of the main scriptwriters for the show, Chiaki Konaka, loves referencing the Cthulhu mythos, or the mythological universe in which Cthulhu exists. If you've watched the anime series Serial Experiments Lain, The Big O, or Digimon Tamers, then you might have recognized him because he was the main writer for them as well. I also wondered when the Cthulhu mythos started to become popular in Japan. At least from what I could find, the first Japanese short story to have any reference to it was Jakyo no Kami, or The God of Heresy by Akimitsu Takagi. It was published in 1956. Apparently, this story wasn't famous and was finally recognized in 1994 when a group of authors were making Japan's first Cthulhu mythos anthology. In terms of manga, anime, and games, it seems like it was around the mid-1980s that for some reason references to Cthulhu mythos became more popular. It might have to do with the tabletop RPG Call of Cthulhu being released in Japan in 1986, but I'm not entirely sure. Anyways, let's go back to Ghathanathor. Why is this guy so popular? At least from what I can understand, it's mainly because this guy established himself as a very good final boss of a tokusatsu TV show. The amount of despair Ghathanathor brought to Earth was quite considerable, enough so that this guy almost wiped out humanity and actually managed to defeat Tiga once. And on top of all of this guy is also very important thematically. While Tiga represented light and hope, Ghathanathor represented darkness and despair. If you think about it, the entire show is about the search for hope. Kyrieleid and Evil Tiga both suggested that hope only exists within specific people. The episode with Gazort went into the problems of that because there are so many different types of people and ideology in the world that there can't be one solution. And then, with the finale against Ghathanathor, the story goes into how hope exists in everyone, especially the children because they carry the future of humanity. So yeah, with such an awesome finale, I think it makes sense that Ghathanathor became the most popular kaiju of Ultraman Tiga. And before we wrap up this video, I was initially planning on talking about episode 39, Dear Mr. Ultraman, because it encapsulated the entire theme of the show in a single episode. However, I decided against it because I realized that I'll be repeating the same thing that I already said. And so, instead of me just talking about it, you guys can just watch it officially on Shout Factory's website for free. In fact, you can watch the entire series of Ultraman Tiga, so check it out if you're interested. Anyways, that's basically all I wanted to say for today. Let me know what your favorite episodes or kaijus were from the show in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time.